And so if you don't have any other takeaway on this presentation than this, just remember animals are largely creatures of the edges, and that's what I constantly look for are edges. And so this I'll show you another picture of this map. This map is a part of my property here at Hackberry Farm. And in fact, I'm looking out the window at it right now. What you can't see on the bottom of the picture is the barn I'm sitting in. I cropped that out just because it wasn't germane to the conversation. But animals are largely creatures of the edges. And and what I mean by that is they like the edge of landscapes. They like landscapes that transition from one type to another, from heavy cover for bedding and loafing to the edge cover where they can move around freely, be able to see predators or anything else coming. And a lot of times they may find food along the edges because of in a, in a, in a, for white-tailed deer, for example, along the edges of mature timber, like you see in this picture, the new plants and the forbs don't grow as readily in the mature stands because the canopies shade out everything. So the new stuff's likely to grow on the edges. And that's where you'll see deer traveling because they can eat and they can travel to where else they're going to go during the day. And then here's an example for you. Here's another uh, view of this map. Now you'll notice something on this map. So, and this is something I purposely did. You'll see those little islands of brush that right there in the middle of the picture. I wish I could point at it. You can see what I'm talking about, but I think if I describe it, you can see. So there's two creeks, left-hand side, right-hand side. There's two creeks that parallel this whole area. And in there, I'll go every year and I will cut a bunch of, I just increase the amount of edge density there is in the property. Now that's low growing brush. That's really good for songbirds. It's really good for small animals like rabbits and raccoons and possums and everything else that goes up in there to hide. And then what you can't see because it just filled up the other day. This is also a wetland. So when it's full, all this. When it's not full, it's good for terrestrial animals, small animals. But when it's full, it's good for ducks and stuff because it gives them a place to hide. But almost every white-tailed deer I see on the property will travel along this red line. Now notice they're going from one creek to the other, but they avoid going straight across the field, even though it may be a better way for them to get there. They always, almost exclusively, I wish I had them mapped out there. I can tell you this is an anecdotal number, but I can tell you 95% of the time if I see a deer on my property or any other kind of wild animal, wild pigs, coyotes, bobcats, anything else, they use this travel corridor to go from one creek to the next. And the reason is pretty simple. If they get out in the middle and something is trying to get after them, at any time they're moving along, it's just a few steps into some heavier cover where they can hide and protect themselves. And that's the sole reason why they travel like that. So with the knowledge of edge cover, if you've ever been to the Smoky Mountains with me before and we're looking for black bear, we're looking on the edges where habitat changes, where it's mature forest that goes to a clear cut area, or whether it's mature forest that that bleeds into open fields. They're almost always along those edges. Now you could argue, well, you see them there because it's the most open, and that's true, but it's also a lot more predictable place where animals are going to move. And that, to me, that's the key thing to know when you're out looking for wildlife is try to identify those edges that are close to cover, close to food, close to water, and then watch those edges. Now, you don't see animals there. It's not a constant highway. I'm looking out my window right now and I see two crows out in that area where I just talked about. So they're not always there, but in the evening and in the morning, and you start paying attention to the animal nuances when they're most likely to move, that's when I'll see them out there. Now that area, like I said before, when it floods, that's a wetland, but when it's dry, animals use it just as much because you can see all the edge habitat there. And so that's what I mean when I talk about edge habitat. I shot this picture here, and that's the same area I'm talking about. I shot that picture right there about 3 weeks ago, I guess. And I was sitting here in the barn, and the window was open on the north. I keep my camera with me all the time. The deer are moving around, and that nice buck stepped out there, and I took a picture of him.